Welcome to the channel, everybody. On this episode, I'm going to try to address the Jeep Gladiator and its steering. Off-road, I've been exceptionally happy with the Gladiator. It has been a beast, but on-road, yeah, the steering is meh at best, and that was even before I put on the lift and the bigger tires. I've been driving, all-wheel drive cars for the last 15 years, and I'm used to tight, responsive steering, and that's just not what I'm getting out of the Jeep. And I'm not expecting, sports car responsiveness, but I would like something better than what I'm getting right now. I'm aware of the technical service bulletin that's out there for owners that have been having real problems with their steering as far as drifting and having dead spots, and they're exchanging the aluminum steering box for a steel one. I don't think my issues are that severe. The only time I really felt uncomfortable with the steering is if I'm on a really rough section of interstate, maybe I'm going 75, 80 miles an hour. I've had a few times there where I just didn't feel as confident in the steering as I would like to be. And when you're going 75 or 80 miles an hour, you want to feel confident in your steering. So there's a couple of things I looked into, and I'm going to give it a try to see if I can just tighten up the steering, get it a little bit more responsive. So the first thing I'm going to try is to install the Synergy track bar and sector shaft brace. See how that does. And then after that, I'm going to install the steering stabilizer, and I'm hoping that combination together will really get the steering where I'd like it to be. Using the 21mm socket and wrench, remove the track bar from the track bar mount. Raise the front end of the Jeep and support it with a jack stand. Remove the driver's side front wheel. Disconnect the front sway bar and move it down out of the way. I have quick sway bar disconnects, but I believe the factory bolts are 18mm. Use the 42mm socket and breaker bar to remove the pitman arm nut. You may need to buy a 3/4 to 1/2 inch adapter to use the 42mm socket. Next, you'll need the new pitman arm nut, 2 O-rings, and thread locker. Place the thicker O-ring at the bottom of the nut. Place the thin O-ring in the groove. Apply thread locker to the threads of the pitman arm nut. Apply a light amount of grease around the nut. Install the new pitman arm nut and torque to 184 pound-feet. Remove the 4 bolts holding the steering box in place using an 18mm socket. The rear bolts are shorter than the front bolts. Slide the brace over the track bar mount. So this is the point where a relatively simple install becomes anything but that. So in the instructions, it says that you're supposed to take the track bar bolt and slide it in there to hold the brace to the track bar mount as you go ahead and make the adjustments that are necessary to secure all the bolts in there. But the problem is that the bolt would not fit in to the hole. It was just slightly off, and that just being a little bit off kept the bolt from being able to go into the mount. I tried adjusting without the bolt in there, and I was able to make all the adjustments with all the other bolts, but the more adjusting I did with that, the more out of alignment the track bar mount and the brace hole became. So I had to loosen everything back up again and give it another shot. And essentially what I had to do is take an impact driver and force the bolts in there just enough to keep the bottom position in place. And then I had to go back and adjust all the bolts. And in the instructions it says the key is to keep things loose, which would make sense, but that is not how it went. Matter of fact, I had to do the exact opposite eventually, is go tight and essentially force it into an alignment. So after wrestling with that, which seems like forever, I got all the bolts in and everything aligned except for that bottom mount hole. It was still just slightly out of alignment, and that just little bit keeps the bolt from going in. So what I end up having to do is take a drill bit and kind of grind away the edge of the hole, so to give more wiggle room and to give more space. And then once I did that, I was able to get the bolts in and secure it. I am not exaggerating when I say that trying to do that process of adjusting and forcing that brace to fit over the track mount was a nightmare. You have to lift the steering box to get the bolts back in. The instructions say 1/2-inch bolt washer and nut, but they are actually 3/4. Install them into the upper side hole of the brace. The instructions say 1/2-inch low profile bolt, but it is actually 3/4. You'll need a 7/32 Allen wrench also. Install the bolt into the bottom side hole of the brace. The bolt head should be on the inside of the brace. Take the sector shaft brace and install the Zerk fitting. Slide the sector shaft brace over the pitman nut. The instructions say 3/8, but the bolt is actually 9/16. Apply some thread locker and insert into the front of the brace. Apply thread locker to the 1/4-inch flange head screw and use a 5/32 Allen wrench to screw it into the sector shaft brace. Apply thread locker to the 3/8 flathead screw and insert into the rear of the sector shaft brace. There is a small hole in the rear of the sector shaft brace where the set screw is inserted. Apply thread locker to the set screw and use a 1/8 Allen wrench. Use the grease gun to put grease into the Zerk fitting. Put the wheel back on, lower the Jeep, and reinstall the track bar using the new bolt in a 22mm socket and wrench. Torque all the bolts to the specifications in the instructions. So it's been a few days since I installed the Synergy track bar and sector shaft brace, and I can say that I do feel a difference in the steering. It is a lot tighter. There's less of a play in the steering wheel. So right now I'm going down I-70, coming out of the mountains. So we got some turns, we got a little bit of bumpy road, and I can say it feels a lot better. So I am not disappointed as far as it being able to deliver on better steering. But the only thing that has me hesitant about even recommending it to someone was the installation. Boy, that was a nightmare. I still don't understand how something like that, should be such an ordeal. But I was able to get on there eventually, and I will say that I do feel a difference. So next I'll see about installing the Falcon steering stabilizer and see if that makes a difference, if any, and if so, if it can really get the steering where I really like it in the Jeep. I'll keep you up to date.